Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this budget workshop meeting to order. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? No, I'm off.
Just have to mute the actual speaker.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Approve.
Mr. Lawson makes the motion, Ms. Howard makes the second. And it is me this time. I swear. My computer off. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? The agenda will be approved as presented. Are we okay now?
Yes, sir, the county channel was unmuted.
Gotcha. Okay. I have taken attendance. 3 members of council are in the chambers, and 2 members of council, Mr. Dawson, Mr. Mr. McKellen, are online. The others, Mr. Somerville, Mr. Glover, Mr. Hervishon, Mr. Rodman, Mr. Flewelling, and Mr. Cunningham are not here. Therefore, we do not constitute a quorum, so no action will be taken at this meeting. And this meeting is actually to get some information from administration. So I'm going to first turn it over to our county administrator, who is coming here in a moment, or our deputy county administrator.
Good morning. Hope you all are doing well after the storms that have come through.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us today. This is the first of several workshops we will have in the establishing of the fiscal year 22-23 budget. At this time, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our budget director, Miss Pinky Harriet, who has worked tirelessly since the fall to begin preparing this budget for the next fiscal year. And she will hit the high points for you today with a focus on the general fund, which, as you know, is our operating fund. And of course, the guidance given to her by administration is to keep a meal-neutral budget. It may be that we just divide that meal differently among some capital items and deferred maintenance that we have not kept pace with to our liking over the last few years. So, no further ado, Miss Harriet, the show is yours.
And before you start, Pinky, for Mr. McKellen and Mr. Dawson, we have items in front of us that were emailed to you so you can follow along as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Harriet.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, today we're going to have kind of an informal budget workshop. It's not exactly anything tied down at the moment, but we'd like to get some feedback from council regarding your priorities for the upcoming year and some of the preliminary numbers that we have put together for revenues and expenditures. Go ahead. Right up there or there? I don't think it's working. Sorry. Okay, so today's discussion will consist of some priorities that council can let us know that you may have for fiscal year 2023, current general fund status, and the upcoming year's requests. We'll go over some new personnel requests, capital equipment requests, and a quick overview of our other funds, special revenues, capital projects, debt service, and then some summaries on the enterprise funds. Sarah, please. So currently, this is our general fund, and as you can see, the first column is fiscal year 22 budgeted, and the second column is actual year to date. So this is all of our revenue categories for fiscal year 22 so far. So these are all summarized into our various revenue sources. And this is where we stand as of right now. And as you can see down at the bottom, this was as of April 5th, and we have 93% collected so far. Next.
Now, do you want questions as we're
Please.
going along?
Very informal, so if
Any
anything,
questions
please
from
do.
anyone about this particular item? Okay, just, the ad valorem taxes, this is, you said we budgeted 100 million, we've actually collected 102 million?
Correct.
Can you give some idea of why the extra 2 million?
Well, I think we were conservative in fiscal year 22 in the budget process. Also, we've collected more than we anticipated, so we kind of lowballed it going into the budget year. And as you have read, or Ms. Richland has proposed, we're doing an amendment or a budget amendment to spend some of that surplus. So yes, we're a little bit higher than we anticipated. Also, 93% collected, that's pretty much the bulk of our ad valorem taxes.
Okay, and do we expect any of the others that are so much lower, for instance, license and permits, will we?
Right, we've still got April, May, and June to account for, and these revenues, I'm pretty sure, and Hayes, you can correct me, we're through the end of February, correct?
I would assume that they are, yeah. The intergovernmental should definitely.
Yes, it will. We haven't received all of our revenues yet, so we still have at least 3 months to go in the fiscal year.
Okay. Okay.
Business license, the biggest months for the business license will be in the next several months, and then collections. As far as the intergovernmentals, we've only received 2 months out of our state aid. Our 2 quarters, we're going to receive the next 2 quarters. We'll also get the homestead exemption, which is about $2.5 million, which will go towards that 10 million. I fully see us getting the full 10 million. We're pretty close on the charges for services. I see us getting in the ballpark for the remainder of those all the way through the bottom. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Dawson.
this presentation that's on the screen now, I don't have that. You said that we were sending. I have the expenditures by department breakdown and breakout, but I don't have this this graph that's in front of me now.
So you cannot see what's on the screen right now?
Yes,
You can
I
see
can.
it.
I can see it on the screen, but the information you sent us, I don't have that.
Right,
Mr. Dawson, we can send you a copy of this
Yeah,
PowerPoint right
this-
after the meeting. if
right,
that's okay.
this is a PowerPoint, which is a little bit different than the other 2 items we sent you.
All right, good enough.
We here don't have it in front of us. We only have it on the screen as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions about the revenues? Go back one.
Okay, we can move on.
Okay. All right, next one. Go one more, Sarah, please. I think the expenditures is on the next one. There we Never mind, just go back one more. Looks like we have a little bit of an issue between the one I have here in front of me and the one up there. So for fiscal year 23, the general fund big picture, our revenues projected so far, based on a small 5% growth in ad valorem taxes specifically because of the growth that we have seen in the past 2 fiscal years. Our projected revenues are $144,955,069 currently. And then our fiscal year 23 projected expenditures, right as of today, they're subject to change because we have some things that we need to still review with department heads and a couple of things that we're going to kind of dig deeper into is $144,922,362. Currently, our surplus is $32,707. Of course, we have just received the property information from the assessor's office and the auditor's office, so we are not quite, revenues could change depending upon the value of the mills. So, go ahead,
Okay.
next slide, please.
And just so anybody who is seeing this online, VOM is value of a mill.
So here's some the categories of expenses for the general fund for fiscal year '23. We have general government at 40. Fiscal year '22 is the first column, and fiscal year '23 is the second column. This is a summary of the document you received via email and what you have in front of you for those here. This is a summary of the general government or all of our government category of expenditures. So the general government is 53,291,066 for the next fiscal year, and that includes some highlights that I'll go over for next fiscal year coming up. And public safety, as you can see, there's about an $11 million increase from last fiscal year. Oh, you said? Here's some of the highlights of some changes for the general fund for next year. The expenditures include a 3% cost of living increase that I believe we discussed previously at the budget workshop in October, or budget kickoff in October. Administration is presenting a 3% COLA. Those numbers are reflective of the 3% as of July 1, but I understand right now we have something in the works for it happening sooner than July 1. The South Carolina police officer's retirement has not yet changed. We have not seen anything in the House or Senate bills that changes those percentages. So they remain the same at 16.56 for South Carolina retirement, and police officers at 19.24%. This year, we have several additional capital purchase requests, which you'll see in detail in an upcoming slide. Previously, we had deferred capital purchases because of COVID, and we weren't sure exactly what our revenue was going to look like, but it seems we have done pretty well during COVID for the past few fiscal years. We had some significant increases in some IT maintenance contracts that we have converted to Office 365 and other softwares. And also, we are replacing a lot of hardware that we also deferred during COVID for IT, some servers and traffic signals, I'm sorry. I have to ask the expert for that one. And then one thing you'll notice when you look at your expenditure details, the sheriff's office consolidated all of their orgs, kind of similar to the form that we did last year in the general fund, into one org. So you'll see it broken out in 22 adopted, and then you'll see it as one org in fiscal year 23 requested. Here is some summaries of new position requests for fiscal year 23. Some of these we're still kind of working through. These are the departments that have requested the position, and the figures to the right include fringe benefits. So this is kind of where we're still working through the weeds with our department heads. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I had a
Yes.
question. The coroner's office, I think, had requested a position. Does it show up later?
Yes, we are in the middle of still kind of dwindling through some of these. I received the request from the coroner, and we are going to continue to meet with him and administration to make sure that we can try to
Thank
do
you.
that.
Some of that's gonna be grant funded as well, so we've gotta work out all of those
The
details.
numbers.
So,
Okay, so these are the departments that are new position requests for next fiscal year in the general fund, and the grand total is $1.1 million. And these are not yet included because, again, this is our very first workshop. We are still working through the weeds. Administration is still getting some details from departments and ACA, so they're not quite a done deal yet. These are some vehicle and equipment requests for the general fund and the departments associated with the request. As you can see, the amounts are to the right. We did not purchase a lot of capital equipment in the past 2 fiscal years, so we're kind of making up for some of the retired vehicles that need to be upgraded.
We are trying to continually to refine the fleet services by setting up a motor pool and all that, which will result ultimately in reduced purchase of vehicles, where we can allow multiple departments to share vehicles. That not all departments need a vehicle every day or use a vehicle every day, so we're doing that as a cost saving measure as well.
That was a part of the garage fund consolidation that we did last year, so we're kind of improving it as we continue over the upcoming fiscal year. Here's a summary of our revenues and expenditures for our other funds. As you can see, our special revenue funds, which are mostly funds that consist of grant funds and any fund that has a restriction of any sort. Capital project funds, revenues and expenditures, our debt service funds, and then our garage internal service fund. Any questions so far?
Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So with the other funds, these are some of the capital equipment requests that they have submitted for next fiscal year. We have a fuel truck for the garage and a couple of tractors for stormwater. And then the Hilton Head Airport has a couple of vehicles that they would like to purchase as well.
Hold on there a second, Pinky. Can you back that slide up?
All right.
What do you mean a couple of vehicles for the Hilton Head Airport?
I believe they have a couple of requests in for a ARF vehicle and a testing pad for the ARF vehicle.
Are these things to move airplanes around, or what exactly are they?
No, it's a part of their fire, the airport fire rescue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Here's an overview of our fiscal year 2023 enterprise funds, our Beaufort Executive Airport, Hilton Head Island Airport, our Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, and our Stormwater Enterprise Fund. And again, we can send a copy of this PowerPoint out if you would like to see these summarized details. Any questions so far? That wasn't a very long presentation because really this workshop is for council to give us some direction as into what they would like to see in the next fiscal year. Just a brief summary of what we have coming up as our next steps. We're going to continue to work on our revenue projections and provide the outside agency with the value of a mill. Hopefully I can finish that this week. Next, we are going to probably at our next workshop go over our 3-year CIP book you've heard about at several finance committee meetings. It is the first 3 years of our comprehensive plan that was previously approved. And then we're going to finalize the administrator's recommended budget and present it to council. You will have some presentations at the April 18th Finance Committee meeting from outside agencies. Currently, we have Beaufort Jasper Comprehensive Health is slated to present, and the fire districts are slated to present on April 18th at Finance Committee. And then we are still trying to stay true to our calendar for May 9th for our first reading, and the school district will also present its budget presentation at that same time.
Hey, Pinky, did you get any preliminary estimates from the Sheriff's Department with regard to their recruiting and retention issues in the budget with regard to salaries for people that will be starting work there?
No, sir, I have not. I received their budget request for fiscal year 23, but no additional information has been provided.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would, council member, I would imagine all of that would be included in their budget. We do not get into a lot of detail with elected officials about what they're requesting from a personnel standpoint. We just assume that they have those items covered in their request to us regarding retention and pay to stay on par with what they need to be doing to correct the shortage that they may be experiencing as we are having to do as well. So.
Yeah, I anticipated those would be coming in higher than last year. I was just wondering if we had anything yet. But happy to wait until we get into the weeds, as they say.
I had one question about Parks and Recreation. The Bluffton increase was quite substantial from previous year. Is that due to increased use of?
So we had a bit of for Parks and Rec specifically. Last year, or in 21, we had about 7 different org codes for Parks and Rec, and we consolidated into 2. Essentially one south of the Broad because we really don't do a lot in Hilton Head specifically. And then one essentially north of the Broad. So last year, when we did the consolidation, we accidentally lumped some salaries into the north of the Broad that we are correcting moving forward. We did a budget transfer mid-year fiscal year 22 to cover that, but it was a simple oversight and consolidation. That was it.
And Alice, let me say that, Pinky, correct me if I'm wrong, when it says Bluffton, it really should say south of the Broad as opposed to just Bluffton.
Right.
Correct.
But again, Hilton Head obviously does a lot of things themselves. So again, it kind of looks like, well, gee, Bluffton's getting all that, but
Stood
really
out,
it's,
you know?
Right.
it's north and south kind of.
Yeah, and if I could elaborate on that a little bit more, as you all know, we've been having some issues with, you all have gotten some feedback on senior programming and after-school programming through the Parks and Rec programming. It's been one of our goals with our team is to try to correct that for the seniors in the county and also for you all as the county council members. So those increases are also resulting from needing to hire additional personnel in those areas should we get the award for providing those senior services. And one of the things that I have asked the team to do, and they're working hard on, is for us to be able to provide after-school care programming that's beneficial and effective. And it also will reduce the cost to our employees who need after-school care. Many of our employees have to spend $400 or $500 a month out of their paycheck for after-school care because of the cost right now. So I feel like if we could do that, that would be an additional benefit to employees to be able to put their children in our after-school programming and not really have to worry about cost. And hopefully it will be closer to where they work so they can get to the children more quickly in the case of a sickness or something like that. So
Thank you.
that's why those increases are there as well. So. We are making big strides trying to improve the recreation program countywide. I know it doesn't appear like that in all cases, and that there's a lot of impatience with us doing that. But that is one of our goals, and that's one of the things that we're focusing heavily on to do that. We've got the master plan going on. There's other things that we're doing to help out with that. So.
Okay, so at this time, we just want to have a general discussion about
Any
what we think.
Sure.
Okay,
And you have your general fund expenditures in front of you, so if there's anything that stands out that you have a question about or need more detail on, we're more than happy to provide.
okay.
And then other
So-
than that, if there's some additional council priorities that you would like us to consider moving forward before we finalize the numbers for next fiscal year, we would love to have that feedback from you.
Okay. Mark, let's start with you. Questions, concerns? What would you like to see or not see?
I'm probably the last person that you want to come to because obviously I'm the finance chair. So I had my own personal one-to-one with Pinky before we
Well,
came here
that's why I
today.
was starting with you, because you are finance chair, but I'll save you for
Okay.
last. Alice, would you care to elaborate on what you might want to see in or out of the budget?
I just had a question about a few of them, and you already answered the one about the coroner, because that looked like a low amount for what.
Which one are you on, revenues or expenditures?
Expenditures.
Expenditures,
Sorry.
okay?
But you answered that question, thank you, because I think he has a need for wanting the personnel increase. The other one I had was voter registration and Veterans Affairs, the increases were, if it's personnel, then that's fine. I just wondered if there was anything else in those expenditures for the increase that, I'm sure there's some justification or not justification, but it's quite an increase, 43 and 49%.
Yeah, for voter registration, of course, we have an election coming up this
Right.
year. So that's a significant part of their, sorry, I'm going to check to see if we have any extra notes that we can give you. But that is the major increase for voter registration because they're planning for the upcoming election.
Yes.
And for Veterans Affairs, I can dig into a little more.
So, I can help Pinky with the Veterans Affairs issue. So what's happening right now is there's a transition going on there in the director position. They're posting, they've posted the job. They are going to be hiring someone. So once they hire that person, they would like for that new director to work with the current director for a period of time to find their feet and understand the process before the current director leaves Veterans Affairs. So I've been working with the chairman of the delegation about that issue. And so the increase there would be part of that because we're going to be paying two salaries.
Two salaries?
At one time, yeah. But it's going to be closed out quickly. I don't want you all to get concerned about that. And then also there's probably some additional requests for part-time employee in there. I have elected not to allow that job to be posted at this point because until the new director comes in and has a chance to understand the needs at Veterans Affairs and what changes might be necessary to provide more efficient services, I don't think they should hire anyone until that new person can come in and evaluate and see what the actual needs are, and then we will work with the new director on that. So that's probably where those increases are coming from at this point.
And they're not all going to be borne by us because of the two salaries that the Veterans Affairs are going to look for some additional funding.
Well, if we feel like we need assistance, I can work with with Representative Newton to see about the state providing some funding, but I don't think that's an issue for us to worry about at this point. They're telling me that's going to be over with very quickly, but we do have to plan for it.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. All right.
Just to
Anything?
confirm, that's exactly what the increase is in salaries, and it's due to the transition period.
Gotcha.
And we do receive a state stipend for Veterans Affairs, but it does not cover both. It just covers one director at a time.
Gotcha.
And we don't know what the amount for 23 is going to be yet because the House bill is not passed yet.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Dawson, any comments?
Yeah, just briefly, to the administrator and his staff, it's good to see that we're going to have some increases in our senior programs budget to beef up the senior program, the after-school program, and the care program for our employees. In addition to that, I would also ask our administrator to look at our director of the seniors program to provide more activities for our seniors in this program that would allow them to actually expend some energy doing some creative things and not just continuing on the level that we have now. Let's see if we can provide some more activities for them to generate some liveliness in their activities while they're spending these times at the seniors program. And in addition to that, Eric, I want to say to you personally, if it seems as if myself and York are being impatient when it comes to recreation north and abroad, it's not so much that I'm impatient. It's just that I'm trying to highlight the need for recreational activities, but also the desire for the communities where these community centers are located to be able to have some level of access into the centers to actually do things that are beneficial to the communities, as far as having like social meetings, social gatherings, things of that nature. So I'm not impatient. I'm willing to work with you to any extent to see if we can actually just provide the desires of the community.
Yeah, and I didn't, Councilmember Dawson, I didn't mean to imply that. I wasn't trying to be negative toward any council member. There is a reason for that impatience, and it's well-founded by the citizens who are doing this, because many of the areas have been ignored, particularly over the last couple of years, and probably much longer than that. So we're happy to continue to work with, I'm happy to continue to work with you and Councilmember Glover as well. And I didn't mean that to be a negative thing about the impatience. The impatience from the people that are requesting these improvements
are well-founded in a lot of areas, and we're working hard to try to deal with that. So I appreciate your words.
Very well.
Thank you. Mr. McKellen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You and I had an opportunity to have a tour of the voter registration Board of Elections facility in northern Beaufort County, and I think we both came away with the understanding that it was inadequate. And I'm wondering, Pinky, if there's anything in the budget related to that with regard to capital expense to improve the situation there with regard to storage and the environment for the employees.
Well, with regards to storage, yes, we already have that solved. We have a building that we purchased through Real and Critical Lands that is a large building where we can store voter registration materials. Voter registration director toured that building a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, and determined that it was not up to standards that they would need to put their equipment in. But the building is, we have county channel equipment inside that building. It's climate controlled, it's secured, and it's all of that. So we have this existing building and I've offered them to have that space for storage, but they have declined. So we have not programmed any capital money for voters registration because it's unnecessary at this point, since we have a rather large warehouse storage facility already that they can take advantage of.
You're on mute, Larry.
All right, what we saw there, the amount of voting machinery and equipment that they keep for cyclical use, that will all be moving out of there to another location? Is that what you're saying, Eric?
It could move out of there to another location, but the voters registration folks said that the existing building, because I guess because it's not new, was not adequate for their storage needs. So I'm still working on that with the voters registration director and the chairman of the board, the chairperson of the board. I talked to her just Monday because I did the welcoming for their voter registration officials conference here in Beaufort on Monday morning, and I spoke to the chairperson and told her that I would be arranging a time for she and I to go through and tour the Harris Building facility, because if it's okay for us to put our county channel equipment in from an environmental standpoint, then it's okay for voters registration machinery to be stored in there as well. It's a secure climate controlled environment. So it would be just the same as what they're having now with their warehouse.
I understand what you're saying about the climate. It's the security for the voting machines. I think that would be of utmost importance, particularly if it's not a manned space with regard to the security there. But I'll leave that to you to work out. The chairman and I were just struck by the lack of space that resulted for the employees over there based upon the amount of space that was being used for storage. And, they're essentially, a lot of the employees are working in the storage area.
Yeah, that's right.
You can rectify that by moving those items, and that would be great.
That's right.
One more observation on a different topic. I see what I see on the screen, and I see there are increases there, and most of them are to be expected because of current situations that we're dealing with. But I have an interest in certain of those items. And when will we be able to drill down on that and not just have a number, but rather perhaps have a better understanding of what the money is going to be allocated for specifically? Will that be coming?
Yeah, that'll be coming on April 18th, sir. And if you have any specific questions in the meantime that you would like to know answers to, as always, council members should feel free to reach out to members of the administrative staff on the budget team, whether it's an ACA or a member of the finance department, Pinky, or anyone on her staff. Feel free to reach out to them and say, hey, I would like to see this detail, or can you explain this particular issue to me in more detail? I have no problem with that whatsoever.
And also keep me on those emails as well. Copy me on that as well.
Okay, yeah, I feel very liberated in that regard. I'm not at all shy about calling people to get information, as you know. But I'm only really dealing with the ones that I have liaison responsibility for, and not things in the larger picture. And I'd be happy to hear what other people who have specific interests in and the items that they raise as an observer and participant. But I do have some specific questions about certain of these requests that I'd like to be able to drill down on, and I'll take you up on that offer. Thanks very much.
All right.
Okay, I'll go next. The COLA, I think, is essential. I would have loved to have seen it even a little bit higher based upon the nature of what has happened over the last 2 years. So I commend you for doing that.
To make you feel a little bit better about that, the state has proposed a 2.5% increase, so we're a little bit above the state this year, so that's really
So
progressive for
anything we
us.
can do in that regards to help our employees, I think is outstanding.
I hate to keep doing this. You're doing
You get your own mic.
You're doing a great job. So that's one of the things we need feedback from you all on. Our plan right now was to go ahead and do the 3% and then maybe come back in the fall and do an additional an allotment for the employees. The state employees are getting 4.9% increase. If you all want to go ahead and increase the COLA to a higher number, we're okay with that. We can make that work. We just wanted to understand what your position would be on that. So,
My
cost of living is
position-
going up
yeah.
probably 5 or 6% in the last,
Yep.
several months. So anything that we can do to help close that gap, county administration and the budget team would certainly support and be in favor of. So
Yeah.
we would like to hear y'all's feedback on that.
Okay, so, yes, I think we have to have a more robust discussion regarding that. What I'm hearing and what I've seen over the past couple of days, and this is not a reflection on anyone, but because having been in education all my life, I know what it is for parents who have to struggle with school-age children in the school district because of an emergency having to shut down. And how it has affected us as a county. And then it goes around the county as well, because there's other entities that rely on what is happening. So I applaud the idea of us putting together a plan before school, after school for our employees. We're one of the largest employers in the county. It is our role and responsibility to ensure that our employees are well taken care of through an increase in salary, through training, to possibly having the ability not to have to spend the amount of money they spend for childcare. And if we can do that as part of this budget, I think that goes a long way to telling our employees, it's not just lip service. We want to do something for you and with you to make you the best possible employee. So I applaud you for that. My final thing is that, yes, over the course of the last 2 years, we have let things go. That was just the nature of COVID. Now we have a plan for the future, and we have to be cognizant of our facilities, maintaining our facilities on an annual basis. Setting aside money in the budget to maintain our facilities, I believe, is an essential part of our responsibility. Because if we let that tiny little roof leak go without maintaining, the next thing you know, we have to replace the whole roof sooner than we had planned. So if that is something that we can work in the budget.
And I think you'll see a lot of that when it comes to the CIP book. We have we had over 147 requests for capital improvement for upcoming fiscal year. And we kind of ranked them, the committee met and ranked them based on priority and importance. And a lot of those pertain to our facilities. So, of course, we'll be presented to council and you will decide whether which ones are priority, but you'll see the numbers, of
Yeah.
course, attached to them
And
as well.
I view it slightly different. You know, capital improvements to me are things that I want to have, I didn't have before, they're brand new. I'm talking about maintaining what we have, which is, in my mind, something different. Okay? That's it for me. Mr. Lawson.
Good, thank you. I just want to make sure everyone had a chance and whatever questions they had. I've got a couple questions, and really it's more about just bringing information for everyone else. When we start looking at expenditures and especially ones that have increased quite a bit, and I'll start with Mr. Hill first, that got quite of a increase in your department next year. So obviously that raises, concern. So what if you want to come up, just let us know what you think on that. And what's happening in your department and what's going on?
The majority of the increase is really kind of what Chairman Passmont said, where we're upgrading equipment that we've kind of neglected for the last 2 years. For example, like the phones at the desks, they all need to be upgraded, so we're going to start upgrading those. We didn't do those the last couple of years because nobody wanted to go into the office and touch people's phones, right? So we kind of put those on hold. So we've got roughly 1,700 phones in the county. We're going to do like 300 a year. So this will go on for the next couple of years till we go through the whole life cycle. We also have put on the books about 250 laptop replacements to go through that same life cycle. So a lot of the hardware life cycle we've neglected for the last 2 years. We've been really focusing more on cloud and remote work, but now that everybody's back in the buildings and those sorts of things are accessible now, we've been focusing on those. So about 350 phones, 250 laptops. We're going to be replacing 20 Cisco switches in the buildings, and they're expensive. They're about $20K a piece, so we're replacing 20 of those. In addition, one thing that we haven't really devoted money towards in the past was the life cycle management of our security system. So typically what's happened is we put in cameras and we just kind of walk away. Well, 5 years later, those cameras are kind of old and you can't really see out of them anymore. So we have to kind of put those into our upgrade rotation, right? That continuous management and continuous upgrade of the gear. We won't be doing all the cameras. We just do whatever was replaced, whatever was installed first, we'll replace through. And then finally, we've consolidated the security piece. Typically, the departments would, whenever they wanted to install cameras or something, they would budget for it. We just moved that under IT. And we had kind of a significant request for some security cameras at some of our Parks and Rec site. And I just put it in the IT budget, and it was removed from the department's budget. So that's where the increase is.
Good. So do you think you have enough? Because obviously we hear every day or we see in the news where someone has a $40 million ransom. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that even though you're asking for increase, that you've got enough money that you can protect us. So is that something you need more money, or how's that?
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. I think the overage, we really kind of focus majority on keeping the infrastructure safe. This overage is just for hardware upgrades, just to keep things going forward in a progressive way, so that we can call and get support when we need it from the vendors, so that we can take on new functionality for the phone systems, such as intercoms and those sorts of things. If we want to have a platform to enable those things, we will have it. So I think we're good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
One of the things that we want to do is to upgrade the equipment here
Yes.
for county council, because obviously we are in the technology age, as you can see. Council members are not here physically, but they are here because we have the technology to have them participate. And it is essential that we make sure we are in the leading edge of that.
Yep. Understood.
Okay.
Good. And my next couple questions that might default back to Eric, but obviously when you look at our expenditures for next year, risk management is a 25% increase. Is that something that we're looking at every year going up 25%? Or I know we just created this this line item, just 2 years ago, I think we started putting everything into risk management. So we had a big increase again from before. Is it insurance has gone up? Are we including more things, or what are we looking at?
Yes, sir. Some of our tort liability has increased, and our workers' comp has also increased. And then we also have an additional amount for cybersecurity that we're adding on to our policy with the IRF, I believe. So that accounts for a lot of that increase, so it has gone up.
Okay.
We also, it's time for us also to undertake a review of our insurance policies to make sure we have everything covered. So that will require some resources as well to make sure our coverage amounts are adequate. You know, a 25,000 policy last, 3 or 4 years ago may not be adequate to cover a loss of something that you are familiar with your career. I'm sure, you got to make sure that those coverages match what it's going to actually cost to do the work or to replace something this day and time.
Okay, good. And the one that has gone up quite a bit as well is emergency medical services. We've got a $4 million increase. And if you look at the actual income from it, it stays the same at about $4 million. And we've gone from expenses at $10 million to $14 million. So is anyone that can give us I know we increased salaries for the medical staff, so.
I struggle with Phil all the time about, ask him for money that he doesn't need, so I'll let him come up and answer that question. That is very much a joke, okay? Phil's the most qualified. He'll be able to answer that for you.
Thank you, Eric. Nothing like putting me on the spot, but that's all right. I got it. I think what you're going to see on the increases is our salaries, our personnel. For years and years, the personnel budget has always been a big issue with EMS, and I don't think it was properly funded through the years. And so what you're seeing is a shift in making sure that the funding is proper for the amount of personnel that we do have. And so also through the years, we have also increased our personnel numbers because we have had to put on another ambulance. And so when you put on an ambulance, you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of adding 12 more additional personnel to that, just that one ambulance to be put on 24/7. So that's where you're going to see a lot of the increase is there. There may be some increase too with our ambulances. Obviously, we're on our replacement cycle with ambulances. We're getting a little backed up. I don't know that if you know this or not, but vehicles are hard to come by. And we're kind of getting behind the schedule here. We're kind of getting backed up that we're not getting these vehicles in because we're waiting on vehicles to be built with no time limit at this point. We're being told every time we call, we're waiting on the chassis, and the chassis is waiting on a chip. And so we're getting way back on our recycle here, and so now we're trying to get caught up. Luckily, we have a few feelers out there. The problem with chassis, and a lot of people don't understand an ambulance chassis, it's not just a normal chassis. Yeah, it looks like a normal F450 chassis, but those chassis are specifically built, and there goes one now. Those chassis are specifically built for ambulances. They actually have a stamp on the door that says for ambulance use only. So they're specially built out, and then we have a third party that actually builds the ambulance. So it's not Ford that is supplying the ambulance, they just supply the chassis. So the third party who builds ambulances in the United States, and there's only a few of them that everybody's vying for. Everybody's got POs lined up to get new ambulances, and they're just not there. And so that's where you may see some of those increases coming in. Plus, we are trying to update all our technology. Years ago, and you may or may not remember, we bought a bunch of Lucases, and I'll remind you the Lucases are the automatic CPR machines that we use. And they're rather expensive. There's about $12,000 to $15,000 a piece, and we have 15 vehicles that need those replaced. And so when you look at those costs, and that's where you may see some of those rising costs in our budget, but personnel is the biggest part of it.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yep, go ahead.
Follow up on personnel. What's your turnover retention rate? And how many vacancies do you have right now in EMS?
We are doing much better. I'm glad to report. I think with all the help from Eric and Whitney and Pinckney with trying to get our salaries adjusted and going through that whole process, that I think we've done a pretty good job of doing better than what we were. At one time, we were really hurting very bad, almost to the point where we were looking at shutting down ambulances throughout the county because we just don't have personnel to run them. But we're better off. We're probably at about 5 paramedics short right now, which is not that bad. We had been down as low as 12 to 16 at one point. So luckily, we're seeing people stepping up into that field. I just wish they would step up in a few other fields, but we're gaining ground on the EMS, and I'm glad to report that back. Thank you for the question.
If I might chime in, Phil, I congratulate you on fighting for the increase in the salaries for EMS workers, our frontline workers, EMS personnel. They do a tremendous job in trying to respond to the emergency and the emergency care for the citizens of our county. And the salary has always been an issue. I recount back in the early 80s where I started working with EMS on the entry level. And then I went through the process and got started working as a paramedic. But even at that, I still wasn't able to provide for my family. And so it caused me to leave Beaufort County EMS and seek other employment. And so I know what the EMS workers go through. And for us to consider trying to make their salaries appropriate for the level of work, the stress that they go through, the times away from their family and things of that nature, I think we need to constantly keep looking at their salary and make it appropriate for them to actually provide the level of service that they are providing. So we need to make sure that we take care of our EMS workers.
Well, I thank you for your comments. Again, I want to thank all of council for all their support throughout the years. Getting us new equipment, keeping us with our technology above everybody else to help us save those lives out there every day. Just so that you know, this past year we ran 16,000 calls for service with 11 ambulances throughout the entire county. Is pretty monumental when you break it down to how many of those runs for each one of those ambulances. That's a lot of runs. And it's continuing to climb as long as people want to move to Beaufort County and come live, work, and play and enjoy our beautiful county. And as more people move in, we're obviously going to have more calls for service. So again, I applaud all of you for all your help throughout the year and support. We couldn't do it without you. And Mr. Dawson, if you'd like to come back, we'll take you with open arms, sir. I have a spot.
No, thank you. I'm retired. I'm done.
Yes,
Colonel
sir.
Foote, could I ask you a little bit about the increase at the detention center? Is that $600,000 primarily personnel issues that you're dealing with, or are there other contracts in there that we need to hear about?
There's other contracts within that budget. As you well know, medical is always constantly rising. So we do have a contract. Not only do we have a medical contract, we have a food service contract, and food service, believe it or not, rose up really large. They look at the CPI and it jumped huge. And we normally don't allow those jumps to go like that, but it's hard to deny that the food costs have not risen throughout the country, and that CPI jumped up to 6.1%, I believe, just since December. And so, yeah, a lot of those costs are getting pushed over to us. So some of it is personnel, some of it is our medical, and some of it is our food service contract. and also dealing with mental health issues too.
Yeah, I thought all of those things entered into that, and I actually thought that based upon all of the issues you're facing in that regard, that your request was rather reasonable and kept in check. So congratulations on that.
And thank you again, and thank you all for your support again for all the staff that are in public safety. Gone through some tough times.
Thank you, Mr. Truitt.
Hope I answered all your
You sure did. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One more would be, obviously, we had a large increase in the facilities management. Now, is that part of some of the capital improvements or actually maintenance or things that we've got, or is that actually in salaries?
We'll do this one together. So the answer to your question is yes. It's to start the implementation of the facilities master plan that we've done. There's 3 or 4 projects that have been programmed for us to start, mostly out at the Public Works area on Shanklin, I believe. The other thing will be increased funding for maintenance. We have a lot of deferred maintenance needs for county buildings countywide, and we've got to get on top of that, provide the staffing and resources necessary in order to bring those facilities back up to where they need to be, and hopefully, provide better services or at least adequate work environments for our employees. The building, the roofing is getting ready to start on this building, so the next couple of weeks you should see cranes out here with roofing materials around and things like that to start repairing the roof on this. That's already been funded through the GEO bond that we did a few years ago. So all of the above. You have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so about $1.8 million specifically is budgeted in this general fund budget just for facility maintenance and upgrades that we have also deferred in the past 2 fiscal years. So $2 million of that is just for our facilities. So we have included that in the upcoming year, and of course, a small increase for salaries and wages as well.
Thank you. The only thing else that I've got to add is obviously I do want to commend staff that obviously we've stayed conservative and still been able to pay people and make things happen and take care of our facilities. But as we move forward, obviously I think some of the things that we're all focused on, and Joe's mentioned a couple, I think Alice mentioned some other things, and even Mr. Dawson, is the fact that we want to take care of our employees. More importantly, provide for the safety of our citizens, keep our buildings updated and maintained. And then obviously we've had some surpluses, and I think that when we look at our surpluses and how we handle things, we need to do what's best to pay down our debt or end up giving back or lowering taxes and trying to bring that back to the citizens that paid the money and we have the money here. So those are kind of my priorities of where we move forward. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm completed.
So you've kind of got a feeling of where we think we should go. I commend you for what you are doing on behalf of all of the citizens. I think you understand the needs of everybody, what has happened over the last couple years, and how we get to move this county forward. Again, our goal is those who live here, those who work here, those who play here, that it is the best that we can do for them. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Dawson.
if I might, as we go through this budget process, I think we should have a open discussion as far as the safety and protection of our employees, and that is providing security for the admin building. I know we've touched on it in the past, and it's kind of like fell by the wayside, but I think we need to address the safety of the admin building as we continue this budget discussion.
Okay, well, I will make that note.
Any other questions or comments regarding the presentation today?
No. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will adjourn this meeting.
Public comment.
Citizen comment,
Oh.
just in case.
Oh, citizen comments, yes. Is there any citizen comments?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
Make sure we hit it.
yeah, seeing none, we will adjourn.
Councilmember McGowan and